everyone. It's amazing to be here. And for me, it's amazing to be in a completely different non-academic kind of environment for the day, and I'm super excited to be here. So I'm going to talk to you about power in chimpanzees today. And because this is a little bit left field, I am going to just start by introducing myself. So I'm a psychologist by training, but yet, as Dan said, I spend considerable amounts of time chasing chimpanzees around the rainforests of Africa. And I have such what I think is an awesome job because I'm an evolutionary psychologist. So I'm interested in how the human mind has evolved. So many of you might be comfortable with the idea that our physical form has evolved over time. So we've gone from being quadrupedal to being bipedal. But it's not just our bodies that have changed. Our minds have undergone massive evolutionary change. And I'm interested in trying to understand that. Questions like, what makes the human mind special compared to other species? What is it to be uniquely human? And how did things like human social cognition evolve? And to answer those kind of questions, one of the most powerful ways you can do that is to study chimpanzees and other living primates. So here you can see us along with members of our fellow primate family. And the idea is that by comparing human traits to those of other primates, we can try and estimate what our now extinct last common ancestors with those species might have been. And chimpanzees are particularly important because, along with bonobos, they are a good model of what that last common ancestor that we shared with them 5 to 7 million years ago might have been capable of. So if we find an ability, say, recognizing yourself in the mirror, a fundamental of self-awareness, and we find that we can do that from about 18 months of age, but bonobos and chimpanzees can also pass that test of self-recognition, we can then make the inference that probably that's because we inherited that trait from our now extinct last common ancestor. So we can start to make estimations of what the mind of that individual was actually like. So now I've told you theoretically why I study chimpanzees, let me tell you a bit more about them. So chimpanzees live all across equatorial Africa. They live in communities of between about 50 and 200 individuals. They tend to live in rainforest environments, but do go into woodland and more arid areas. Like us, they're omnivores, so they eat primarily fruit and leaves, but also insects, honey, and meat if they can catch it. And they are incredibly social. So they invest a huge amount of time and energy into their social relationships within that community. So I've been lucky enough to work at 3 sites, which I'm going to talk to you about today, in Uganda, so with 3 different communities of wild chimpanzees. I started my PhD work 20 years ago in the Bodongo forest. Then I've worked at Ngogo, which is where Chimp Empire was filmed, that many of you have seen. If you haven't, I highly recommend it. And then also with another group in Kibale with the Kanyawara community. So what does power look like in chimpanzees? Well, for this, I'm going to talk to you about how Bodongo was structured when I first went there as a PhD student 20 years ago. And the clear alpha male of the community was Dwayne. So this is Dwayne. He was an incredibly physically strong chimp, but also very, very good at relationship building. And we'll come back to that later. Second in command was Marnie. We then had other mid-ranking males like Zephyr, Nick, and Boba. And then we had the lower-ranking males, Bob and Musa. And this is a linear hierarchy with the adult males. So you never get equal ranking individuals. It is very clear who is dominant to who. And the male chimpanzees invest a huge amount of time and energy into trying to better their place in that hierarchy. All of those males are aspiring to be the alpha, and they use all the tools in their kit to try and get there. It's not a particularly egalitarian society in the chimpanzee world, so all adult males are dominant to all females. Within the females, there are still some power dynamics. So there's a clear alpha female in this community, Nambi. And then there are other high-ranking females who've successfully raised offspring, so Banyura in the center and Quera. And then at the low-ranking end of things, you've got the young females who've yet to successfully raise an infant, and also in females that have joined from other communities. So that's what power looks like in chimpanzees. But what does it get you? Why do the males struggle for this alpha status their whole lives? Well, it actually has quite a lot of benefits. So research has shown that the higher ranking you are, the better feeding position you get in the tree. So the higher up you feed. And that's probably because the sunlight has ripened those fruits at the top of the tree to a higher degree, they've got a higher sugar content, and you're getting more nutrition from those figs. Females will mate with all males in the community to try and disguise the paternity of their offspring, to try and reduce infanticide risks. But all of the long-term field sites show that the high-ranking males father far more offspring than the low-ranking males. So they're much more able to monopolize the females when they're maximally receptive to then get the offspring. It also comes with nice perks, so there's a lot of grooming. So we know that grooming has a hygienic function, they remove parasites from each other, but it's much more than that. They get a huge endorphin release from being groomed, and there's a lot of grooming that goes up the hierarchy. So lots of low-ranking individuals will groom those above them to try and make friends with them. So if you're high-ranking, you get a lot of nice massagey grooming all day. Who wouldn't want that? And you also get quite valuable resources. So if they hunt successfully, the carcass usually always ends up with a dominant male who then gets to decide who is going to share that meat with him. So the other thing that chimpanzee kind of high-rankingness gives you is respect from community members. And I think this is quite a human kind of quality that the high-ranking individuals, seem to lap up that respect. And in chimpanzees, it's a very, very kind of obvious signal. So if we go back to our hierarchy, if Nick approaches Dwayne in the forest, he's likely to emit a pank grunt. So this is a vocalization as he greets him. And it's often kind of combined with a bobbing or a bowing gesture. So they're really, really demonstrative in their respect for those above them in the hierarchy. So here we're going to see Jared greeting Wes. Oh. So you can see, really kind of very clear, there's no doubt he is saying, please be nice to me, I submit to you, you are above me in the hierarchy. So that's what the chimpanzee power gets you. But how do you get there? What are the routes to being alpha male or second in command? And we're going to look at two routes, the first of which essentially is brawn. So it's physical intimidation and aggression. So rather than just being aggressive all the time, it's more energy efficient to simply display your physical strength. And adult males do this a lot. So here we see Kakama doing an intimidation display. Ground slapping, throwing stuff. And believe me, when they come past you doing that, it is really frightening. And their physical strength is absolutely clear. So those saplings that he can just bend over like that, I could move them about that much. They are incredibly strong. And by doing those displays, they are demonstrating their physical strength to whoever is watching. Getting a display like Kakama's, who was the alpha male in Kanyawara, takes time, though. And one of the really nice things as a researcher is that often the chimpanzee juveniles will practice their displays by doing them at us, at the researchers. So this is Cabotrese, who's just 8, kind of trying to develop those displaying behaviors. So good stomping. Oh, very strong. Yeah, good sapling bend. But just lost it a bit at the end there. So, and then they sat there and looked slightly embarrassed for a while afterwards. But the beginning bit, very solid. So it takes time to put together those displays of physical intimidation. And those that I've shown you so far have been silent. But there are also, the chimpanzees also will put them together with pant hoop vocalizations. Having slight problems going on to the next. Oh, perfect. And so this is their long-distance communication vocalization, but it's also, again, just adds to that sense of intimidation and strength. So this is Zephyr, one of the best drummers that we had in Bodongo, so he's going to show you his pants hoot and drumming on a buttress tree. And again, just to qualify, if I tried to drum on that buttress, you might at best get a very dull thud. The strength with which they're hitting those buttress trees is incredible, and that drumming can carry for up to 1 kilometre through the forest. So that was him, and then we've got Nick and Boba demonstrating then the combination of the kind of charging display with the pant hoot. So this is all a public showcase of look how big and strong I am, essentially. But sometimes that's not enough, and you do have to just show direct aggression to others. So this is Kakama in a completely unprovoked against Takagama. Come on, let's have a play. Oh, there we go. Yeah, looking pretty proud of himself there. Well done. You've just beaten up a juvenile. Very strong. But so this kind of physical aggression is commonplace. It happens multiple times in any day. And again, but the adult males do tend to pick the weaker members of the community to kind of showcase their strength. They actually rarely take on those that they're more closely matched with. As again, they're doing it tactically. But it's not all about brawn. So kind of the second route to that elusive alpha male position is relationship building. And in particular, male chimpanzees will form very close partnerships called alliances or coalitions with other individuals who are relatively close to them in the rankings. And the idea would be then that, say, Nick and Zephyr would form an alliance to try and topple Marnie, get into second place, and then eventually together to topple Dwayne, to then between them they would have to fight it out to see who got the top spot. But so that's the kind of idea. So how do they do this? What kind of behaviors do they do to form these really strong relationships? And grooming, again, is a really top one. So again, getting that endorphin release and grooming each other seems to be a really important way of social bonding for chimpanzees. But you also then support each other in fights. And so here you'll see Johnny, who has just killed this monkey that they're now eating. And Unisema here is a juvenile, and he's been kind of annoying Johnny because he's been begging for meat, and Johnny doesn't want to give him any. So when Johnny's kind of alliance partner, Makoku, approaches, you'll see Johnny do an arm raise gesture at Unisema, which is an aggression, and Makoku immediately attacks him. So here comes Makoku. There's the arm raise. Oh, don't do that. That's quite close. So you can see there, and again, Johnny didn't really need help against Unisema. He's only a juvenile. But again, it's a demonstration to everyone there that's watching. If you annoy one of us, you annoy both of us. So you're taking on both of us, so be careful. And as I said, if you're high-ranking, you end up usually with valuable resources like meat. And again, coalition partners will share meat preferentially with each other. So this is Kakama with a monkey carcass, and he's going to allow Tongo to come in and share that with him. And again, sharing in chimpanzees is never very active. This kind of tolerated theft is about as good as it gets. There we go. But it's not just meat that's a valuable resource. So even when in the forest, if they find a valuable food resource, something that's tasty food that they want, they quite often then give these food-associated calls. So they sound if they find a food that they like. And we wondered, well, are they just broadcasting to anyone, I found this food that I like, or actually are they using these vocalizations tactically? And so we did a series of experiments where we played back the pants hoot that you saw Zephyr doing to simulate the arrival of specific individuals into the vicinity to see whether it would make a feeding male give those grunts or not. So here we're going to see Frank in both videos. In this trial, he's going to hear a playback of Squibs, who he really likes. It's a friend, and he's higher ranking than Frank. So it's someone that he wants to impress. And you'll hear Anne commentating, who is the researcher that did this with me. So he's munching away on flowers and leaves.
He's been feeding for 6 minutes, eh?
That's the playback.
This is Frank making foot grunts, panthood and foot grunt.
Okay, so he responded very positively, produced those vocalizations to try and attract Squibs in to share this food that he'd found. In contrast, this is Frank in a trial where he's going to hear Zalou from up here, and he doesn't really like Zalou, and Zalou is slightly lower ranking than him. So let's have a look at his reaction to that.
Sam is about to play Zalou.
That's it. He's obviously heard.
Still continuing feeding. He just looked, but he doesn't make any food grunts.
So he has no intention of telling Zalou that he has found good food at that place. So we know that, again, this is one of these behaviors that they do direct preferentially at these individuals that they want to form these really close partnerships with. But it's not just about forming those very close alliances with one or two other males. It's also about getting the support of the wider community, so support of the females and lower-ranking individuals. And there are a number of ways that high-ranking males do this. So first of all, high-ranking males play a special policing function, where if two lower-ranking individuals are fighting, they will just do one of those intimidation displays right through the middle, just slap everyone, break it up, and get the attention refocused on them so that the squabble breaks up and it is not a thing anymore. So that's one thing that they do. In order to kind of curry favors with the males will groom the females, but they will also show a softer side and they will play with the infants of those females, and that is delightful to see. And thirdly, they do also use grooming down the hierarchy. So here we've got Buckner, who's the big dominant individual, and he's been approached by little Whitland. There's just been a fight. You can hear screaming still in the background. Whitland's feeling a bit anxious. He's whimpering, and Buckner just reassures him with a little groom, hopefully.
Whitland approaching Buckner.
So he's a bit unsure.
Whimpers from Whitman.
Then he just gives him a nice groom. And again, that will give Whitland some endorphin release, make him feel better. And so they don't just use grooming totally tactically, they do use it to be nice as well. So of route A and route B, which is necessary to get to alpha male status, well, in chimpanzees, route A is actually necessary, and we know this from individuals who've sadly sustained really severe snare injuries in the forest. Hopefully in a minute, if my clicker will work, we'll see Max. There we go. So this is poor Max from Kanyawara, who's unfortunately lost both of his feet to snare injuries that were set for bushmeat. And Max will never, ever be high-ranking because he can't engage effectively in those intimidation displays or being aggressive to others. So if you can't use your brawn in the chimpanzee world, you won't ever make it. But one individual who did use brawn successfully to get to alpha male, eventually in Bodongo, was Nick. So Nick had an alpha ship that lasted about 2 years because he got there purely by fear and intimidation. I'm just having, there we go, there's Nick. So he used really almost exclusively route A. He did get there, but he didn't last that long. In contrast, we've got Dwayne. So Dwayne, as I introduced you at the beginning, was alpha male when I arrived, and he was alpha male for 10 years. And that, in my view, is because he used a good combination of route A and route B. So he was physically very impressive, but he relationship builded. And he put the effort into those relationships. And it was I'll just leave you with one last anecdote. One time where this just was so obvious was one day we were in the forest, we were watching Dwayne up in a tree with another male. Dwayne started to do an intimidation display, which up in a tree is risky. I really would like this video to play. There we go. So they're making incredible leaps when they're displaying like this in the tree, and sometimes it doesn't go well. And on this particular day, Dwayne was chasing Zephyr. He got hold of him. They both fell. They fell about 30 meters and landed right in front of me. Both of them were screaming. I was really worried they were going to attack me because they were in a lot of pain. Dwayne landed on the bottom, and we think he broke his leg. He couldn't climb to feed for several days. He was obviously in a lot of pain. He definitely couldn't protect himself from aggression or display. And we thought, that's it. It's the end of Dwayne. He is going to drop in the hierarchy like a stone. But no, because Marnie, my favorite of all the males, second in command, stuck to him like glue. And anybody that displayed near him or even thought about being aggressive, Marnie just came back at them way stronger, sent them away, sent them packing, and he stayed with Dwayne until Dwayne had recovered his strength, got over the injury, and Dwayne had another really good, successful couple of years after him. But that's because he'd put the time and effort into his relationship with Marnie, and he'd groomed him, he'd shared meat, he'd helped him in fights. And then for Dwayne, that paid enormous dividends. So with that, I would like to thank all the people whose footage I've shown you today, and yourselves, and ask if you had any questions.
Absolutely. Come and sit down.
Thank
This is
you.
fantastic. I'm afraid we've only got 3 minutes. One of the things I heard, which was fantastic the other day from American academia before the first Trump victory, was that nobody in academia believed that Trump was going to win the first time round, except all the primatologists who knew he'd win. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, someone has actually asked that question here, which I think was to be expected, to be honest. Someone else has also asked an interesting question. Effectively, sorry, I've messed this up. Sorry, I've got a scrolly thing. So there's a patriarchal structure.
Yeah.
There's a kind of recognizable status thing. Status is both displayed in, I suppose you might say, 2 contradictory ways. Is that fair? Which is, it's that same human contradiction, which is we're part selfish and part collaborative. Yes. Yeah. Which is often sort of at the root, we might argue, in current human problems. Yeah. Did you predict a Trump win?
I stayed agnostic, I guess.
Yes,
but it doesn't surprise me. I think he does show more of those qualities that are more demonstrably associated with power, which I think some people still find appealing, and it's very clear. He makes it very demonstrative. He is a powerful individual. So he doesn't do a full intimidation display, but he has those qualities.
And interestingly, some of his strategies, I mean, the surgical use 2 days ago of the word fuck, I thought was equivalent to that thing you mentioned where you basically run through the group as policemen and basically go, you're all idiots, effectively, stop this, which is quite interesting. There's a question here, is it true that bonobos are actually matriarchal in structure?
Yes.
They are.
Yes. So
chimps, the other close relative bonobos, effectively have a female-dominated structure where the females dominate status.
So so it's really interesting that it's exactly the opposite. It's not quite that then all females outrank all males, but it's much more that the highest ranking female in bonobo, her son is likely to be very high ranking as well. So it's kind of more nepotistic, keep it in the family. But yes,
so it's actually, because there's another question here, fantastically, to what extent is status to some extent hereditary? Now, if they're not sure of their paternity.
Yeah, so in chimps, not at all.
Because there's no knowledge of,
I mean, again, the son of the alpha female got a helping hand at the beginning because she would support him in fights, but that's when he was kind of younger. Once he was fully adult, all the adult males then really are by themselves.
It doesn't matter where they... and of course, I suppose maternity is certain, whereas paternity is ambiguous.
Is unknown in chimps.
So in the bonobo community, of course, you know who the mother is,
exactly.
And so the status is more hereditary.
Yes. And the
by the way, male bonobos, you've got to break through that glass ceiling, guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. How long has this been going on? For goodness sake. And we've got a question here from Andrew Tate, only kidding, it's actually from Matt, which says, is there a correlation between testosterone levels and status?
Yes, there is. Yes, and those most dominant males have very high testosterone levels.
And one other person asked, the alpha male phrase, which is often used, somebody's claiming that it's been slightly debunked, but you'd say that your observation of chimps would suggest that there very much is, or there tends to be, at the top of the hierarchy.
Absolutely, unequivocally. The difference between the alpha male and all of the other male, the gap between alpha male and the beta male is massive in comparison to the gaps between the others. So we quantify that hierarchy in terms of how many of those vocalizations each male receives, and the number that the alpha male receives blows everyone clear out of the water. And just the way the others respond to the alpha male is qualitatively different to all of the other males. So in chimpanzees, there is unequivocally an alpha male.
And so, and it's, as you said, it's a sort of projected aura which is regularly demonstrated through noise, behaviour, and other activities. Yeah. I'm intrigued about effectively. With humans, top-ranking people often swap favourites and mix fear and bonding tactics. That's pretty much what you see here. And there's a final question which is absolutely great, which is, what's the most surprising thing you've seen a chimp do to display status? And there's a follow-on question, what's the most surprising thing you've seen a human do?
Oh, okay. I guess for me, the most personally surprising was when I was involved in a male's intimidation display. So he came and then decided that having a good push at me was also kind of, wouldn't it be funny if I could knock over that weird white ape? And so I would say, that was quite shocking and frightening as well, to actually be involved. And in quite a lot of chimpanzee sites, that does happen, that the adult males will use pushing humans over as part of the display of their strength.
And it's simply, you prove it. You're not intending necessarily to hurt. You do it to prove that you can.
Yeah. It's just like, look at this.
Which is kind of a human.
These tall white ones can be pushed over. Like, wow, cool.
It's interesting because an awful lot of human displays of power aren't actually displays of force.
Yes.
They're displays of potential force, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, well... Okay, this has been absolutely fantastic. Will you be around until lunchtime?
Yes.
This is fantastic. So I'm sure we'll have tons more questions. And this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you
so much, Katie.